In the bustling spaceport of Zorth 5, the air buzzed with the sounds of ships taking off and landing. Merchants shouted to promote their goods, while travelers hurried to catch their flights. Among the chaos, Jake, a mechanic with a knack for fixing anything with gears, leaned against a worn-out crate. He watched the scene unfold, his brown eyes scanning the crowd. Jake was a bit cynical, having seen too many dreams crushed in the harsh reality of space travel. As he took a sip from his coffee, he noticed a woman struggling near a small ship. Her long, dark hair whipped around her face as she tried to access the engine. The ship, a sleek model with a vibrant blue finish, looked like it had seen better days. Jake raised an eyebrow. She was clearly in trouble, and he could see the frustration etched on her face. Without thinking too much, Jake pushed himself off the crate and walked over. "Need a hand?" he asked, his voice steady but friendly. The woman looked up, surprise flashing in her green eyes. Yes, please," she replied, relief washing over her features. "I think the engine's overheating. I've tried everything." "I know." Jake knelt beside her and opened the engine cover. The inner workings were as tangled as a web, with wires sticking out at odd angles. He quickly assessed the situation. "Can fix this," he said confidently. As he worked, they chatted. "I'm Jake," he introduced himself, glancing at her. "Lyra," she replied, twisting a strand of hair nervously. "I'm just passing through." Jake nodded, focusing on the task at hand. "Just passing through, huh? What brings you to Zorth 5? Lyra hesitated, her gaze dropping to the floor. "Just a trip, exploring." Her answer felt vague, but Jake didn't pry. He had his own reasons for staying quiet, too. Instead, he pointed out a few parts that needed replacing. "You might want to get some new spark plugs. These look like they've been through a battle." Lyra smiled, the tension easing from her shoulders. "I'll keep that in mind. Thanks for helping me out." Just then, a loud voice cut through the air. "Hey, you owe us." A group of rough-looking men approached, their eyes fixed on Lyra. Jake's instincts kicked in. He stood up, placing himself protectively in front of her. "What do you want?" Jake asked, keeping his tone calm but firm. The leader of the group stepped forward, sneering. "This girl has a debt. She can't just run away from it." Lyra's expression changed, panic flashing across her face. "I can explain," she started, but Jake interrupted. "Not today," he said, his voice low. "You need to leave her alone." The men laughed, but Jake stood his ground. He might be just a mechanic, but he wasn't afraid to defend someone. "In trouble? You really think you can take on all of us?" One of them taunted, looking Jake up and down. "I don't need to take on all of you," Jake replied, glancing back at Lyra. "I just need to get her to safety." The tension in the air thickened. Suddenly, one of the thugs lunged at Jake, but he sidestepped quickly, using the man's momentum against him. The thug stumbled into his friends, causing a brief moment of chaos. "Get back," Jake shouted, his heart racing. Lyra took the opportunity to grab her tools and jump into the ship. "Come on," she yelled, motioning for Jake to follow. Without a second thought, Jake sprinted to the ship, leaping inside just as the thugs regained their footing. Lyra slammed the door shut and activated the controls. The engines roared to life, and the ship shot out of the docking bay, leaving the shouting men behind as they soared into the stars. Jake felt a rush of excitement mixed with relief. He glanced at Lyra, who was focused on piloting the ship. "Was close," he said, catching his breath. Lyra looked over at him, her green eyes sparkling with gratitude. "I didn't even ask for help, but you jumped in anyway." "Thank you." Jake shrugged, a small smile creeping onto his face. "Sometimes, you just have to help someone in trouble." The ship flew deeper into space. Jake realized that this unexpected encounter might just change the course of his life forever. As the ship soared through the vastness of space, Jake felt a mix of exhilaration and curiosity. The stars twinkled outside the viewport like scattered diamonds, and the hum of the engines filled the cabin. Lyra was focused, her fingers deftly navigating the controls. Jake leaned back in his seat, trying to catch his breath after the chaos at the spaceport. "Where are we headed?" he asked, breaking the silence. Lyra glanced at him, her expression serious. I know a place where We can lay low for a while. It's not far from here. Jake nodded, intrigued. Sounds good. I could use a break after that run-in. As they flew on, Jake stole glances at Lyra. She appeared calm and in control, but he sensed a deeper tension beneath her surface. You mentioned earlier that you were just exploring. Is there more to the story? They asked gently. Lyra hesitated, her hands tightening around the controls. It's complicated, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Let's just say I'm not who I seem to be.
Oh.
Jake raised an eyebrow. Okay, but you've helped me, so it's only fair I know a bit about you. With a sigh, Lyra finally opened up. I come from a family that used to rule a large part of the galaxy. But after a coup, I was forced to flee. Now I'm just trying to survive. Jake was taken aback. A royal. Why didn't you say so earlier? I didn't want you to treat me differently, she replied, her gaze fixed on the stars ahead. I've learned that people often see me for my title rather than who I really am. Jake nodded, understanding her perspective. I get that. No one wants to be defined by their past. As they continued to converse, Jake felt a connection forming between them. Shared his own story how he had grown up on a distant planet, dreaming of adventure among the stars, but finding himself stuck in a monotonous life of repairs and maintenance. Lyra listened intently, her expression softening. You have dreams, Jake. You should pursue them. Maybe one day, he said with a shrug. For now, I'm just trying to figure things out. After a while, they approached a small moon, its surface dotted with hidden caves and lush vegetation. This is it, Lyra said, guiding the ship down for a landing. We can hide out here until things cool down. As the engines quieted, Jake stepped outside with Lyra. The air was fresh, filled with the scent of greenery. They walked side by side, exploring the area. It's beautiful here, Jake remarked, admiring the vibrant colors of the plants. It's one of my favorite places, Lyra said, a hint of nostalgia in her voice. I used to come here to think when I was younger. They walked deeper into the moon's terrain, finding a secluded spot near a shimmering pond. Jake sat on a rock, watching as Lyra knelt by the water, dipping her fingers in. I can't believe how quickly our lives changed, he said, breaking the quiet. Lyra looked up, her eyes reflecting the sunlight. Sometimes, change is what we need most. I've learned that we can't always control our circumstances, but we can choose how we respond. Jake admired her strength. You're right. Guess that's why you're still standing here, facing everything head on. Thanks, she replied, a small smile creeping onto her face. It's not easy, but I refuse to give up. Suddenly, a noise interrupted their conversation, a rustling in the nearby bushes. Jake and Lyra exchanged worried glances. Wait, was that? Jake whispered, instinctively moving closer to her. I don't know, Lyra replied, her voice tense. Stay alert. They both stood still, listening intently. The rustling grew louder, and then out popped a small creature. No. Larger than a cat, with bright blue fur and curious eyes. It sniffed the air before bounding toward them, clearly more interested in play than danger. Jake laughed, the tension easing. Looks like we have a friend. Lyra chuckled, watching the creature playfully chase its own tail. I forgot how nice it is to relax. I think we both needed this. As they settled down, watching the creature frolic, Jake felt a sense of peace wash over him. In that moment, he realized that this unexpected adventure was turning into something far more meaningful than he had ever anticipated. After spending a peaceful afternoon on the moon, Jake and Lyra felt a sense of calm settle over them. The small creature had become an instant companion, darting between them and chasing after fallen leaves. They named it Ziggy for its playful, zigzagging movements as the sun began to set. Casting a warm glow across the landscape, Jake turned to Lyra. So what's next? We can't just hide out here forever. Lyra sighed, her expression turning serious again. You're right. We need to figure out our next move. I can't stay in hiding while my family's legacy is at risk. What do you mean? Asked, curiosity piqued. My family used to control a vast empire. Now, rival factions are trying to erase our name. If I don't act, they'll succeed, she explained, her voice steady but filled with emotion. Jake listened carefully. So, What's the plan? We can't just walk into their territory. Lyra nodded. I have some contacts in the Rebel Alliance. It can help us gather support. But it won't be easy. We'll need to convince others that my family can still lead. Jake felt a surge of determination. Then let's do it. I'm in. Lyra's eyes brightened at his response. Really? You'd help me? Of course. You helped me when I was in trouble. Now it's my turn, he replied with a grin. They spent the night discussing strategies and planning their next steps. The stars twinkled above them, creating a perfect backdrop for their brainstorming session. Jake felt a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in a long time. As dawn broke, Lyra suggested they head to a nearby rebel outpost. It's hidden, and only a few know about it. We can meet with the leaders there. Jake agreed, and they quickly packed their belongings and prepared the ship for departure. Ziggy followed them, seemingly eager for the adventure ahead. The flight to the rebel outpost was smooth, and Jake piloted the ship with confidence, felt a thrill at the idea of being part of something bigger than himself. As they approached the outpost, a cluster of small buildings came into view, surrounded by thick trees. Lyra pointed to a landing pad. There. That's where we'll land. Jake expertly maneuvered the ship down, and soon they were touching down. As they exited, they were greeted by a group of rebels, all wearing worn but functional clothing. Lyra, you made it. One man exclaimed, rushing forward. He had short hair and a friendly smile. We were worried about you. Thanks, Rian. I needed to come back. Lyra replied. I have a plan, and I need your help. Rian's expression turned serious. We're listening. They gathered in a small meeting room, sitting around a table cluttered with maps and communication devices. Lyra explained her situation, outlining the dangers her family faced and her desire to reclaim their legacy. As she spoke, Jake observed the reactions of the rebels. Some looked skeptical, while others nodded in agreement. This is a big risk, Rian said after Lyra finished. What guarantee do we have that your family can lead again? Jake felt the tension in the room. If I may, he interjected, Lyra is brave and resourceful. She wouldn't be here if she didn't believe in her cause. We faced danger together already, and she stood strong. The room fell silent, and Lyra shot him a grateful glance. Rian considered Jake's words. All right, but we need a plan. If we're going to support you, we'll need to gather allies and prepare for a fight. Lyra smiled, her confidence growing. I have contacts on several planets. We can send messages to rally support. If we can unite enough people, we stand a chance. The rebels began discussing strategies, and Jake felt a surge of excitement. He listened attentively, offering suggestions based on his experience as a mechanic. We could use my skills to modify the ships for our cause, he suggested. Rian nodded, impressed. Good idea. With your help, we can enhance our speed and firepower. As the meeting continued, Jake felt a sense of belonging. He wasn't just a mechanic anymore. He was part of something important. The rebels welcomed him into their discussions. He realized he was ready to fight for a cause that mattered as the day progressed. Plans were made, and hope began to rise among the rebels. Together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. With Lyra by his side, Jake knew they were embarking on an adventure that could change the galaxy. With a renewed sense of purpose, Jake and Lyra dove into the preparations at the rebel outpost. The air was filled with energy as the rebels strategized, gathered supplies, and sent out messages to potential allies. Jake felt a thrill at being part of something larger than himself, and he worked tirelessly alongside the others. One morning, while the sun rose over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink, Lyra called Jake to join her in a quiet corner of the outpost. I wanted to talk to you about something important, she said, her voice serious. Sure, what's on your mind? Jake replied, sensing the weight of her words. I appreciate everything you've done so far, Lyra began, taking a deep breath. But I need to know if you're truly committed to this cause. It could get dangerous. Jake nodded, his expression resolute. I'm all in, Lyra. I've seen how much this means to you, and I believe in what we're doing. Besides, I can't walk away now. Her eyes softened with gratitude. Thank you. I want you to know that I trust you. We'll face whatever comes together. With their bonds strengthened, they returned to the main area where the rebels were. Gathered, Rion stood at the front, addressing the group. We have a plan. We're going to reach out to our allies on 3 key planets: Valter, Nissa, and Korak. Each has its own strengths and resources that we can use. Jake listened intently as Rion outlined the strategy. We'll lead the outreach to Valter, where we have contacts in the Council. Jake, you will help us modify our ships here and prepare for the journey. Jake felt a surge of excitement as he imagined working on the ships. I can enhance our engines and weapons systems. We need to be ready for anything, he said, already envisioning the modifications he wanted to make. Perfect, Rion replied, nodding in approval. Let's get to work. Over the next few days, Jake immersed himself in the mechanics of the rebel ships. He enjoyed the challenge of improving their designs, making them faster and more agile. With each modification, he felt a sense of pride. The more he worked, the more he realized how much he had missed this kind of hands-on work. Meanwhile, Lyra was busy preparing for her journey to Valter. She spent hours studying maps, making connections, and drafting messages. Jake often saw her deep in thought, her brow furrowed with determination. He admired her focus and passion, knowing that she was carrying the hopes of many on her shoulders. Finally, the day came for Lyra to leave for Valter. The atmosphere at the outpost was tense but hopeful. Rebels gathered to wish her good luck, and Jake felt a mix of pride and worry as he watched her prepare. Remember, you're not alone, he said, stepping beside her as she readied her ship. You have allies who believe in you. Lyra smiled, her eyes sparkling with gratitude. I know, and I'll be back with good news. We can do this together. As she boarded her ship, Jake felt a knot in his stomach. Be careful out there, he called, watching her take her seat at the controls. I will, Lyra replied, giving him a thumbs up. The engines roared to life, and she took off, soaring into the sky. Watching her disappear into the distance, Jake felt a mix of hope and anxiety. He returned to the hangar where the remaining rebels were working on the ships. He threw himself into his tasks, channeling his worry into productivity. Days passed, and Jake worked tirelessly, making significant improvements to the ships. Rion often checked in on him, impressed by Jake's dedication. You're really making a difference here, Rion, said one afternoon. Thanks, Rion. I just want to make sure we're ready for whatever comes next, Jake replied, wiping sweat from his brow. One evening, as he finished up for the day, a commotion outside caught his attention. Rebels were gathered around a communication device, their faces lit with excitement. Jake rushed over, wondering what was happening. Lyra's back. Someone shouted, and the crowd erupted into cheers. Jake's heart raced as he pushed through. The crowd to see her. There she was, stepping out of her ship, a triumphant smile on her face. The moment she saw Jake, her expression brightened even more. I did it, she exclaimed, running up to him. We have support from Valter. They're willing to join our cause. Jake felt a surge of joy. That's amazing. What's next? Lyra's eyes sparkled with determination. We prepare for the next step. With Valter's help, we can take the fight to the enemy. Jake nodded, feeling the weight of their mission ahead. Together, they had a chance to change the course of their destinies and the fate of the galaxy. With the news of Valter's support, the atmosphere at the rebel outpost shifted dramatically. Hope surged through the ranks and everyone felt energized, ready to take on the challenges ahead. Jake and Lyra wasted no time in preparing for the next phase of their mission. The day after Lyra returned, she gathered the rebels for an important meeting. The makeshift meeting room buzzed with excitement, and Jake could feel the anticipation in the air. As Lyra stood at the front, her confidence radiated, and everyone listened intently. Thank you all for coming, she began, her voice steady. With the support of Valter, we have a real chance to reclaim our legacy and fight against the factions threatening our future. The room erupted in applause, and Jake smiled, feeling proud of Lyra's leadership. We need to act quickly. She continued, raising her hand for silence. The sooner we unite our forces, the stronger we will be. Rian chimed in. What's the plan, Lyra? How do we mobilize the support from Valter? We'll send a delegation to meet with their leaders again, but we need to show them we're serious, Lyra explained. I want to lead a strike team to hit a key enemy outpost. If we can disrupt their operations, it will send a strong message. Jake's heart raced at the thought of a real mission. I can help with the ship modifications to make sure we're ready for whatever comes our way, he volunteered. Lyra nodded appreciatively. That's exactly what we need. We'll need speed and firepower. Let's prepare for a surprise. Attack. Over the next few days, Jake worked tirelessly in the hangar, modifying ships and reinforcing their defenses. He felt alive, channeling all his energy into making the ships the best they could be. The rebels pitched in, eager to help. And Jake found himself leading a small team of mechanics, teaching them new techniques and ideas as they worked. Jake often caught himself stealing glances at Lyra. She was focused and driven, coordinating plans with Rian and other leaders. Her determination inspired everyone around her, and Jake felt a growing admiration for her strength. Finally, the day of the mission arrived. The rebels gathered, adrenaline coursing through their veins as they prepared for the strike. Jake stood beside Lyra, who was reviewing the final plans. Are you ready? He asked, concern etched on his face. More than ever, she replied, a fierce determination in her eyes. With your modifications, we have the advantage. Let's show them what we can do. They boarded their ships, the engines humming too. Life as the rebels settled into their seats. Jake piloted one of the modified vessels, flanked by other ships in formation. Lyra's ship was at the forefront, leading the way as they entered enemy territory. Jake felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The landscape below was a patchwork of barren land and makeshift structures, signs of the enemy's presence everywhere. Stay sharp, everyone. Lyra's voice crackled over the comms. We're going in fast and low. The ships swooped down, dodging enemy radar as they approached the target outpost. Jake's heart raced as they neared the enemy base, a heavily guarded facility surrounded by watchtowers and defense systems. We're almost there, he said, his grip tightening on the controls. Prepare for engagement, Lyra commanded, her voice steady. Just then, alarms blared from the outpost as they were detected. You know we're here, a rebel pilot shouted. Stick to the plan, Lyra ordered, unfazed. Jake, take the lead. Jake nodded, his focus sharpening. He piloted the ship through a narrow opening in the enemy's defenses, weaving expertly to avoid fire. The thrill of the chase surged through him. We can do this, he shouted to his crew, urging them on. The first shots rang out as the rebels opened fire on the outpost's defenses. Jake felt the ship vibrate as lasers shot past them. We need to take out those turrets, he yelled, lining up his shot. With precision, he fired, hitting one of the turrets directly. It exploded, sending debris flying. Nice shot. Voice from the back cheered. Keep pushing forward, Lyra shouted, leading the charge toward the heart of the base. Jake followed closely, feeling a rush of adrenaline as they barreled deeper into enemy territory. Suddenly, an enemy ship appeared on their tail, firing relentlessly. We've got company, the rebel pilot warned. Jake, can you shake them? Off? Lyra asked, her tone urgent. Jake nodded, adrenaline pumping through him. He executed a series of sharp turns and dives, trying to lose the enemy ship. Hang on, he shouted, pushing the ship to its limits. The rebel ship behind them struggled to keep up, but Jake's skill shone through. He managed to evade their fire, and with one final maneuver, he sent the enemy ship crashing into a nearby structure. Cheers erupted over the comms. Great work, Jake, Lyra praised as they continued their assault. With the adrenaline high and their spirits lifted, the team pressed on, ready to seize victory in their fight for freedom. As the battle raged on, the rebels fought with determination, pushing deeper into the enemy outpost. Jake piloted his ship with skill, weaving through enemy fire and dodging obstacles. The adrenaline coursed through him, making him feel more alive than ever. Jake, we need to breach the main facility. Lyra's voice rang through the comms, firm and focused. Let's take out those power generators. Jake nodded, knowing that taking out the generators would cripple the enemy's defenses. He glanced at the readouts on his control panel. Tracing the best route to their target, I see an opening. Follow me, he shouted, leading the way. As they approached the main facility, Jake spotted the large towers that housed the power generators. They were heavily guarded with turrets, rotating to track their movements. We're going to have to make this quick, he said, his heart pounding. Lyra's ship flew beside him, and he could see her determination. On my count, we hit those generators. Ready? 3, 2, 1, now. Jake pressed the trigger, unleashing a volley of laser fire. The blasts hit the first generator, sending sparks flying. The explosions lit up the area, and Jake felt a rush of satisfaction. One down, he yelled. But just as they celebrated, the enemy turned their focus on them, unleashing a barrage of fire. Jake swerved sharply, narrowly avoiding a direct hit. They're not giving up easily, he shouted. Stay focused, Lyra called, her voice steady. We need to take out the second generator. Jake lined up the next shot, his hand steady despite the chaos. He fired again, and this time the hit was direct. The generator exploded, sending a shockwave that rocked their ships. Yes, that's two, cheered. With the generators destroyed, the enemy's defenses weakened significantly. Now's our chance, Lyra urged. Let's push forward and take control of the outpost. The rebel ships surged ahead, and Jake felt a wave of determination wash over him. They were making real progress. As they flew deeper into the facility, Jake noticed the enemy soldiers scrambling to regroup. They're disorganized. We can take advantage of this, he shouted. Follow my lead, Lyra commanded, her voice ringing with confidence. Rebels pressed on, firing at anything that moved. Jake kept his eyes peeled for threats, ready to protect their team. Suddenly, a squad of enemy soldiers emerged from a side door, rushing toward their ships with blasters drawn. Watch out, Jake warned, preparing to engage. Lyra didn't hesitate. We'll cover the ground troops. Keep them busy while they move in, she shouted. Jake nodded, his heart racing as he aimed at the incoming soldiers. He fired, taking down several before they could reach the ships. The rebels on the ground joined the fight. Pushing forward with fierce resolve, amidst the chaos, Jake spotted a figure darting between the buildings. It was a tall man in a dark uniform, barking orders at the soldiers. That must be their commander. Jake shouted. If we take him out, it could turn the tide. Lyra nodded, her eyes narrowing in determination. Let's move. We can't let him escape. Jake piloted his ship toward the commander, dodging enemy fire as they advanced. Adrenaline surged through him as he focused on the target. I've got a clean shot, he shouted, steadying his aim. Take it, Lyra urged. With a deep breath, Jake squeezed the trigger. The shot hit the commander squarely, and he fell to the ground, chaos erupting around him. The enemy soldiers hesitated, uncertainty spreading through their ranks. Now's our moment, Lyra shouted. Push forward! We can win this! With renewed energy, the rebels surged ahead, taking advantage of the confusion. The enemy began to retreat, their morale shattered. Jake felt a rush of exhilaration as they pressed on, driving. The remaining soldiers back? Within minutes, the outpost began to fall into their hands. Rebels cheered as they secured key areas, and Jake felt a sense of pride swelling in his chest. They had done it. As the dust settled, Lyra landed her ship beside Jake's. She jumped out, her face glowing with victory. We did it, she exclaimed, running to him. We took the outpost. Jake grinned, feeling the weight of their success. I can't believe it. This is just the beginning. The rebels gathered around them, celebrating their hard-fought victory. They shared stories, laughter, and relief. Knowing they had struck a significant blow against their enemies, Lyra stood tall, her eyes shining with determination. This victory is a testament to what we can achieve together. With Valter's support, we can continue this fight and reclaim our future. Jake felt a surge of hope. Together they had proven that they could make a difference. The battle was just one step in their journey, but it was a crucial one. They were ready to face whatever came next, united in their cause and driven by their dreams of a better galaxy. In the aftermath of their hard-fought victory at the enemy outpost, the atmosphere was electric. Rebels celebrated their success, sharing stories of bravery and laughter. Jake stood among them, feeling a sense of belonging he had never experienced before. Lyra was at the center of the celebration, her spirit infectious, as she encouraged everyone to keep their hopes high. As the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the outpost, Lyra called the rebels together for an important meeting. Joined the crowd, eager to hear what she had to say. "Today, we proved that we can fight back against our enemies," she began, her voice steady. "But this is just the beginning. We have more work to do." Rian stepped forward, a serious expression on his face. "With the outpost under our control, we now have a strategic base to prepare for our next move. We need to consolidate our forces and reach out to even more allies." Lyra nodded. "Exactly. We must show the galaxy that we are united and strong. Our next target is the main enemy headquarters on the planet Karak. If we take that stronghold, we can cripple their operations and gain a significant advantage." The crowd murmured, excitement and nerves mixing in the air. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline at the thought of another mission. "What can I do too?" "Help?" he asked, stepping forward. Lyra smiled at him. "Your skills and mechanics will be crucial. We'll need to modify our ships again to ensure they can withstand the defenses at Korak. We'll also need to gather intelligence on their layout." "Count me in," Jake replied, determination shining in his eyes. Over the next few days, the rebels worked tirelessly to prepare for the assault on Korak. Jake spent hours in the hangar modifying ships and teaching others how to enhance their equipment. He felt a sense of pride as he saw the improvements taking shape, knowing they were all working toward a common goal. Meanwhile, Lyra coordinated with the other rebel leaders, gathering information and forming alliances with various factions. She was relentless, her passion inspiring everyone around her. Jake admired her strength and commitment, feeling grateful to stand by her side. One evening, after a long day of work, Jake found Lyra sitting alone outside the outpost, gazing at the stars. He joined her, settling down beside her. "You've been working so hard," he said gently. "Are you holding up okay?" Lyra looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "I am, but there's a lot on my mind. This mission is so important, not just for me, but for everyone who has suffered under the enemy's rule." Jake nodded, understanding the weight she carried. "You're doing an incredible job. People believe in you, and they believe in this. 'Cause I believe in it too." She smiled, her eyes shining. "Thank you, Jake. It's nice to know I'm not alone in this. You become a vital part of our team." Days passed, and the time for the mission to Korak finally arrived. The rebels gathered, their spirits high as they prepared for the fight ahead. Lyra stood before them, her voice strong and resolute. "Today, we fight for our future. We fight for freedom and for those who cannot fight for themselves. Let's show them the strength of our unity." Cheers erupted from the crowd, and Jake felt a surge of energy. He climbed into his ship, ready for the battle. As the engines roared to life, he glanced over at Lyra, who was piloting her own ship. Nearby, they exchanged determined nods, and with that, they took off into the vastness of space. The journey to Korak was intense, and tension hung in the air. As they approached the planet, Jake focused on the mission ahead. The enemy headquarters loomed large, a fortified fortress surrounded by defenses. "This won't be easy," he said, over the comms. "We'll need to stick to the plan." Lyra's voice was calm and steady. "We go in fast and hit them hard. Remember what we've trained for. We can do this." As they entered the atmosphere, Jake piloted his ship toward the designated entry point. The enemy defenses began firing, and he maneuvered skillfully to avoid the blasts. "Stay close," he shouted to the other ships. The rebels followed Lyra's lead, flying in formation as they approached the headquarters. "Target those turrets," she commanded, and they opened fire, explosions lighting up the sky. Jake felt his heart race. As they pressed forward, the battle was fierce, but the rebels fought with unwavering resolve. They pushed into the heart of the enemy's stronghold, determined to claim victory. After what felt like hours, the tide of battle began to turn. The enemy forces were overwhelmed, struggling to keep up with the relentless assault. Jake felt a rush of triumph as they breached the main control center. "Now, let's finish this," Lyra shouted, leading the charge into the building. They fought through the corridors, taking down any enemy soldiers in their way. Finally, they reached the command room, where the enemy leader was waiting. "You think you can defeat me?" he sneered, but Jake and Lyra stood firm. "Yes, we can," Lyra replied, her voice steady. "Your reign of terror ends here." With a final push, the rebels secured the room, and the enemy leader was captured. Cheers erupted from the rebels as they realized the battle was won. Exhausted but exhilarated, Jake and Lyra stepped outside, greeted by their fellow fighters. They had achieved what once seemed impossible. They had reclaimed not just a stronghold, but hope for a brighter future as the sun set on Korak. Jake and Lyra stood side by side, watching the stars emerge in the night sky. They knew their journey was far from over, but together, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.